Hey guys, welcome back. This is episode 80 of Fun with Fallen Flags. My name is Michael McCarville, and we're going to go through a novice kit build in this episode. So this is the Northeastern Scale Models yard storage. It's kit number NE40008 for HO scale. And it's essentially what is in that kind of blurry picture. It's fairly small picture, so I had to enlarge it. It's HO scale. There's a little bit of stuff on the label there, and it's fairly simple. It's fairly straightforward. There's a few pieces that create the walls and windows, and we'll show you real quick. Actually, the parts blowout. So this is a kit that really a novice could build, and if it's just taken slowly, it's something that really is actually kind of a simple kit to put in a railroad yard, freight yard, lumber yard. It would work for a lot of different things. The lower left-hand corner, that piece is actually the base, and it's really thick. It's like a quarter of an inch. It looks like the whole structure sits up on top of a concrete foundation. So that's just going to get painted a concrete color. The rest of the pieces are just walls and roof and windows and doors. There's really not a lot to this kit. It's really simple, so let's jump into constructing it. So that's the parts, and again, this is a novice kit. This is something that's very simple. I don't know the exact retail price of it, but it couldn't have been very expensive because it's just this simple kit. So let's go through, and we're not going to do anything fancy with it. We're not going to stain it or do any fancy weathering or chipping or hairspray weathering or anything like that, but we are going to do a couple of enhancements keeping with the idea that really any novice could do this. So the first part of it is to actually brace the corners. You'll notice there's a little bit of a notch where the A-frame comes down. That's where those corner trim boards sit, and they're actually like 6x6 inch HO scale pieces. So those just glue to the sides of the corners of all the walls. It's supposed to represent trim where the siding would be. Now this kit was a little bit older, so I did have to brace it quite a bit, and you can see in this photo there are two vertical pieces of scrap wood. Didn't come with the kit. Matter of fact, everything is with the kit except for the roofing material, and in the photo, in the main photo, there's actually a smoke jack on here, and that doesn't come with it either, which I thought was kind of strange. But that's okay because we've got spare pieces for all that stuff. So again, the kit, I did brace it fairly heavily, and that's just one of the examples of where it got braced. There was two halves. There was two buildings. They're essentially just kind of glued together on top and sit on top of the foundation. So one of them went together fairly well, and then the office side, and then the warehouse side, the slightly larger building, that one actually got braced quite a bit, and it really needed it. So let's go through some of the steps. These are the doors and windows. And there's a piece, the panel on the right, that's actually the roof trim. The roof trim is actually the same thickness as the roof pieces because the roof basswood is fairly thick. So those don't actually add any thickness. They just kind of add a little bit of finish to it. But other than that, the doors and windows on here, we'll go through as we add these. But all they really got was a shot of flat green paint, and you can see that the paint is on here. Now number 11 is missing because that's actually the back of number 24, the door, and all I did was paint that the gray that we're going to paint the main body, so there'd be kind of a two-tone effect on the door. Also the backs of the warehouse doors, the garage, the barn slider doors, number 23, those are separate piece. And those are getting painted gray as well, and they'll be the backs of the 23 so you can see a contrast. So you'll see it here in a second. So as I was building the walls, you'll notice that the walls are just basically siding, and I put a slight little cut down, alternating down the siding boards, any place that the siding would have been very long, so that it showed spacing. I also took a X-Acto blade as I was going, and I just very carefully sliced up underneath the wood and then pried it up a little bit, and that's really all I did. And what you see is not only some very, very simple weathering that you can do on this, but you also see the gaps, the joints where the siding comes together. Now that was just all piece of simple siding material that now looks like it's got multiple boards in it, and you can add to this as you want. You can measure out certain distances and make it uniform. I just wanted to make it look like it was basically a simple structure, and it's starting to show its age a little bit. So it's already been painted gray and it's already been sliced. I really am not doing any additional weathering other than this, just to show that it has been painted recently, but it's not getting a lot of TLC. So that's the side. This is the end. Exact same thing. You can do as little or as much as you want to. You can see any place that the boards look like they got fairly long, I broke them down and put a gap in broke down the wood. And any place that slice happened was where it happened end to end, and I started to peel one of them up just a little bit, just to show that there was a joint there and kind of accentuate that as well. So you can see the walls are coming together, and there's some vertical bracing boards that you can start to kind of see inside the doorway and then on that back wall. Also, the door is fairly plain. Not a lot of hardware or anything like that comes with it, but the windows on this is actually the warehouse piece. The windows can be placed in an open position if you want to, or you can leave them closed, so I kind of mixed it. And then the next photo is back to the main structure of the building. I used, instead of using the acetate window material, I actually used what is placed on top of a microscope slide. There's the slide, and then there's the very thin glass cover. I ordered a bunch of these from a site, and it came in a package of 100, and the whole package was only like a half-inch thick. And I use this, and this is actual glass, very thin. If you start to bend it a little bit, it'll bend, but it's going to snap and shatter. So you want to be very careful with it. Now, I glued it in. That's not Elmer's glue. That's actually canopy glue, just in case I got a little bit of the glue on top of the glass material. It would be transparent. But you can see I had a lot of space to play with, which is why I really like using the slide covers, because they extend out past the windows on the inside, so there's lots of gluing surface. So just a little trick. It would be totally fine to just use the acetate as well, but if you do, the acetate is going to actually have to fit on the windows. Now the windows are already wood pieces and 2 pieces, and you have to use wood glue to glue those 2 pieces, and then you're going to have another layer of plastic on it. So I just wanted to eliminate and just kind of simplify that a little bit. But if you want to, you know, slap the acetate windows on there, and they'll look just as good. I just kind of like the way the glass looks. And then I glued a piece, all that is a piece of resume paper cut so that the line for the blind, for the shade, is straight in the window. And then I just took some of the Titebond III glue that I used in addition to gluing everything else, and it just, now it has, that window has a shade on it. I did that on 2 different windows. So the foundation, I painted a simple craft paint gray that I got at a hobby store, and you can see that the gray is a little bit lighter, and it's got a little bit of some dirt on it that is basically a very, very thin down brown craft paint, and it's very thick. It's the whole base piece of basswood is like a 1/4 inch thick, and then there's the piece of material that goes on top of that that the building is built onto. So it's actually like a 1/4 inch and another 1/16 inch of thickness of basswood material, so that's actually a fairly thick base, and it makes the structure extremely sturdy. Once you get all that glued down, if you were to put it on a layout, you could pick it up and move it around and it wouldn't be a big deal. So it's just sitting on top, and it's glued in place. It's actually sitting on top of Gatorade caps. I use those to mix paint and glue and everything else. And then there's a clamp gluing the step piece down. It's actually drying what we're looking at. Next up is the roof sections, and again I painted the underside of that same green as the trim, and then I painted the top side, the edges, just in case the roofing material wouldn't go all the way over to the edges, just as a safety, and then glued it down. I don't usually use anything to glue it down. I'll usually clamp it, but in this case I couldn't really get a clamp around it, so I had to put a rubber band around it just to get one side glued, let that dry, and then close it off and add the other one. So the pieces all fit really well together, and you can see the trim pieces are laying there, and they're going to go on the ends, and they're going to trim out the structure. Now the roof sections are all on. I've reinforced it a little bit, and you'll notice down the crest the two pieces of basswood actually meet, and then they form kind of a gap. So down the center I used, it was probably a 4x4 HO scale piece of dimensional lumber that ran down the 4" by 4" in HO scale, that is, and then that just built the crest so that the crest actually came all the way up, and the pieces of basswood, that gap got filled in. So you can see that the structure is basically assembled at this point, and all that's really left to do at this point is to roof it. Now for roofing, the same material I used for the window shades, I also used for the roofing material. Now I've done the same type of roofing on a number of buildings, and it works out really well. The resume paper that I use is kind of an off-white, but we're going to paint it anyway. But it also has like this texture to it where there's kind of a little bit of lines going in each direction, so it kind of gives it the look like it's rolled out roofing material. The only thing that was tricky on this is when I had to paint the roof, one of the roofs overlaps the other one, so there's a little bit of a gap in there. So I had to put a little piece of duct tape in there just to get the paint when I was painting the roof, so I didn't hit that wall. So it goes roof section, wall, overhang of roof. So I just ran a piece of tape down that edge. So that's the only thing that's tricky about it. You could probably do it a little bit differently in a different order. That's just how I did it. It really wasn't that difficult. You'll also notice that some of the roof pieces, the edge trim pieces, do overhang the roof down a little bit. So at first I was going to leave them, and then I decided to just trim them so they were all squared off at the ends, like the structure probably would have been built. So after that, it's just a coat of paint on the roof, and then let's take a look and see what we got. So again, this is a novice kit. This is not difficult. It's very simple, but it is kind of a fun project. Interesting that the roof material is not included in the kit, and the smoke jack that's pictured on the front is also not included in the kit, as any of the details too. But that's okay. We're working around that. I may get some a smoke jack and add to it, but I wanted to show you what the kit looked like, just the kit. So you can see on the left side there's a window shade. Looking through the corner window, you can see out through the other window, but there's a window shade in that far window too. So it doesn't allow kind of a straight shot through. The barn doors are actually glued into the opening, but you could slide them over and then detail the interior if you wanted to. Let's take a look at the barn door. Now it comes with a little piece of trim material that the barn door basically to simulate the barn door is sliding in that track. I painted that with just kind of a rust colored paint just to show that it was metal but it maybe hadn't been treated. Again, very simple, easy kit. Let's take a look at a couple more views. This is the back wall, and actually this is the front wall. You can see the gaps in the wood peeled up, and the windows on this side are both completely closed. Here's the end, And that's actually the warehouse. I left that one window open just a little bit, and that's the front. You notice the concrete color. I like that a lot. It's a just a craft paint I picked up in a craft store, and I've really struggled with concrete colors. That one really worked out really well, and it's got just a little bit of dirt and grime on it. Very, very light, but I like the way that looks so much that I'm probably going to go back and paint a couple of the other things that I've already done that exact same color. So the roof sections actually go into tabs, so there's really no guesswork on, you know, if it's going to slide a little bit one way or the other. And they only fit in one combination too. And final picture, that's the backside, and that's it for the project. I was pretty happy with this project. There was a couple of points where the age of the wood in it was causing it to warp a little bit, so I just had to stop and get some scrap material and brace it and glue it and clamp it. And again, I just use binder clips for the clamps. So you know, there's lots of different ways to clamp it, but you can see the roofing looks good. The material that we added was simple as a single piece of paper, of resume paper. You could just use regular paper or tissue paper if you wanted to. You're going to get a lot the same effect. The only other thing that I added was a little bit of black marking down the side of the roof, just to give it a little bit of staining. But I didn't heavily weather it at all, and all that is just a chalk powder with dull coat. If you just wanted to paint it and leave it that way, and not weather it, that would look totally fine too, because I almost didn't weather it. By the time I got done, I looked at it and went, oh wait, I forgot to add some weathering. But even then I didn't add very much, and it's very subtle. It's difficult to see. In this photo you can see it, but if it's sitting there and it's not in bright light and direct light, it is difficult to see. So that's it for this project. It's project number 80, and feel free to check out the notes in the body of this YouTube video, and then subscribe to the channel, and there's a Facebook group that you can join as well. Thanks you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next round.